Here we go. All right, everyone. Welcome to the Team Fearless Family Freedom. I feel like it's such a mouthful, but it's a good mouthful. Welcome to the team call tonight. We're super excited to host Sarah Kroger as the coach spotlight, who it's been a blessing to watch her grow. Michelle and I were just excited to have her hop on here tonight. She's her team, for those of you that don't know, is The Purpose. And she's here with her partner in crime, Mr. Ben. And
who's like 15, by the way.
Right. And we just, one of the things we talked about when Michelle and I met last week was how, like, we've got so much great leadership on the team. We're excited to have you guys tapping in and sharing. So Sarah is here tonight, and she is going to share her thing, which is always inspiring. But I'm just really proud of her. She has really pushed herself out of her comfort zone multiple times in multiple zones. And it's been cool to watch, we all have to step out of our comfort zone when we say yes to coaching, but there's different areas, you know what I mean? And it's even been cool because as her coach, as a Pearl who has a hard time pushing people, she's given me permission to push her, and I've learned to, and it's kind of fun because she's a safe person to push, and she pushes me in great ways too, calling me on, and I just admire that. So I'm just very excited to have her here tonight. And her quote, "Masterpiece and work in progress," should go in a tank for sure, because that's what we all are. So I'm really thankful that she's here, and I wish that she lived down the street again and not in Worcester, although I love Worcester. It's a little
I
bit
never
far.
saw you when I lived down the street. I saw you more
I know. I see her more now. But we're super excited to have you here. So I'm going to just hand it over and let you take things over, girl.
Thank you. And honestly, like what you said about pushing really ties into what I want to talk about tonight, because, I'll get into that. But like, it was interesting because I was talking to Kelly and Michelle, and they invited me to speak on the team call tonight a couple weeks ago. And I asked each of them, and I said, Michelle, what do you want me to talk about? What would you like to hear me talk about? Just to kind of get some ideas and hear what she thought. And she goes, I want you to talk about like that masterpiece and work in progress at the same time. Like, that's so inspiring, and it really touches so many people, and so many people get caught in the either or, like I'm one or the other, right? If I'm a masterpiece, then that means I don't need any work. And if I'm a work in progress, then that means I'm lousy, right? And I asked Kelly the same question, and I said, what should I talk about on the team call? And she goes, why don't you talk about whatever is really on your mind, whatever you're really like kind of obsessed with right now, because that'll be what you get excited about. And I like it when you get excited and, get up on your soapbox and get going. And so that's what you should talk about. And I'm like, okay, what am I excited about? What am I all fired up about right now? Goats, to be honest. Like, I'm excited about my garden. Like, what? Probably a different call, right? Being excited about goats. And I was coming up with some ideas of what to talk about. And, I talked about how to find your purpose the last time I was on a call. No, goats, like barn animals. And I talked about purpose last time, and I was putting together some ideas of what to talk about, and I was just uninspired. And, I'm sure it would have been amazing because I'm awesome, but it just wasn't really like getting me going. And I was just kind of putting stuff out there and seeing what sticks, but nothing was sticking. You guys in your chat. Okay, but so on Sunday, when I was sitting at church, something hit me in a new way. And I'm Catholic. I know that's a shocker to people. And you don't have to be Catholic in order to kind of get the message of where I'm going tonight, but I'm going to start there because that's where my inspiration was. So this is like the Super Bowl of the year for us Catholics, right? So there's church every day and all kinds of intensity, and it kicked off on Sunday with Palm Sunday. And I'm not going to read the whole gospel because it's super long, but there was one piece of it, one line in it that I'd never heard before, which is not true because you hear the same thing every year. But I had never heard it before, right? And so this is right at the end of the Last Supper. And Jesus, I didn't have to go with my kids because I had sick kids. And so Ben went to Mass with some of the kids, and I got to go by myself. So I actually got to listen to the gospel. So it's at the end of the Last Supper, and they're getting ready to go out and pray in the garden. And Jesus says, "This night, all of you will have your faith in me shaken, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be dispersed." And I was like, whoa. Like, it's quite literally gospel truth. Your faith will be shaken. You will disperse. Things will come up. Now, we all talk about the gems, right? We all talk about temperaments and those gems and things like that. I am about as emerald as they come, right? I am the melancholic. This guy, not so much, right? Kelly said she was a pearl. This guy, this is like, Michelle's the same way. This is my sapphire that I married that I don't know what to do with sometimes, right? Because I am not, like, I don't think I answered a single sapphire question on the test. Okay, that's how emerald I am, right? So when I even wore my green shirt tonight. Not intentionally, by the way, it's what was clean. But anyway, when I hear that, what excites me is having a plan and then having a contingency plan. Yeah, Kelly's excited. I like to have a plan and then a backup and then a backup for the backup, right? It sucks the life out of him, okay? Sucks the life out of him. He doesn't even like to have a plan. And I like to have like 5 plans, you know? And so for again, because I'm obsessed with goats right now, you know, we have these 2 goats that we're definitely getting. Goats, farm animals, not ghosts. Okay, goats. So we have these goats that we're definitely getting, and then we have these goats that we might be getting. So I spent all day running through scenarios in my head, right? So if we get these goats, this is what we'll do. And if we get these goats, this is what we'll do. And if we get these goats, this is what we'll do. And he's like, I can't talk about it.
I was trying to eat my lunch and my phone kept buzzing with another, this is plan B and this is plan. I'm like, just let me eat my lunch.
They were even marked A and B, my plans.
Right.
But anyway, my point is, I like to have the plan. I like to look at it. I like to troubleshoot it. And I want to talk a little bit about the benefit of that tonight. Not necessarily to have 45 contingent plans, but again, gospel truth. Jesus said, you will lose your faith at some point. You will struggle. You will get off the beaten path. And what do I need to do to leave breadcrumbs in my life to get me back on the path, right? How do I get back to where I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to be doing? Because we're all here right now because we believe in this process, right? I have so many notes that are so jumbled, but I wanted to make sure I said everything, so I'm gonna look at them. We believe in this outcome. We believe that this company is a good vehicle for that. We believe that these products will serve us and serve the people around us. We believe that this team is a growing and thriving place, and that's why we're part of it, right? So in the last 2 weeks, if you were to look at me from the outside, you might not even have noticed it. In fact, even the people closest to me only kind of noticed. But I just had a little blip in my step. And I noticed it. I felt off. I felt like I was straying from things. And no amount of motivation, no amount of plans, no amount of lists or calendars was bringing me back. Okay, so like I had a day this past week that I didn't have my Shakeology. That hasn't happened in like 2.5 years. I got to the end of the day and I was like, wait, I'm off. Something is wrong here. What do I need to have in my life? What's going to bring me back? Because we hear people talking about like this hunt for motivation, right? And people are waiting around, looking around for motivation. But that only is part of the game, right? And so Ben actually has done some talking, and I can post a video again in the team page about motivation versus commitment. But the short version of it is that you have your motivation. It's what sets your course. And then you have commitment. You don't have to wait around for motivation anymore. You have commitment now. But I'm talking about even beyond that. There are times that even my commitment to the process isn't enough. So what do I need to put in my path now so that when I get off track later, I can come back? What are the breadcrumbs that I need to put in my life now that I will see when I have that blip in my journey to bring me back to the path? Because I've heard several people when they're giving talks and they talk about like, well, success leaves clues. And I think that they mean it a little differently than it hit me for tonight. They're talking about, you know, if you want to be successful in this business, you can, or in your journey, or in your health and fitness paths, you need to see what other people have done well, look at the clues that they've left behind and follow those. For me, that success is getting back to my journey when I stray. And I need to look at the clues that I have left for myself. Okay? And so part of that, and you can, if I miss something that we talked about earlier, catch me up. And then when it's your thing, just elbow me. But don't elbow me too hard. So I put things in place that remind me of what I'm doing, right? The plan. And some of them are big things and some of them are less big things. Like I'm a big fan of signs hanging up in my, I'm a big fan of signs hanging up in my kitchen, right? And so I had if you're listening to the National Wake Up Call and something strikes you, something hits you, whether it's a gut punch or something inspirational, you write it on a little Post-it note and put it up in your kitchen so that you'll see it. And you might not look at it again for a while, but then one day when you're really struggling, you'll see it and it comes back to you, right? So I have some things. There was a team call that Michelle hosted, Brigitte, I can't remember her last name, but she talked about this refusal energy, right? And so I had my I refuse, Linford, right? I know that's backwards. And so this hangs up in my kitchen. And so that reminds me, because sometimes inspiration isn't enough. Sometimes commitment isn't enough. Sometimes I have to get angry. I have to get mad about, oh, hush. I have to be mad about what's happening, what I've gotten back to, somebody who brought me ice cream that I asked for, you know, like any of those kinds of things. And I have to get mad that I find myself at the end of the day having made the decisions that I've made. I have to tap back into what I refuse to live like anymore. That's kind of where I got this weekend. We had a great weekend. Honestly, everything that I posted about my day on Facebook was true and it was amazing. But there were a lot of behaviors and habits that I had that were old things that crept back into my day. Even if it was like running in and getting donuts at the gas station when we were getting gas, you know, don't act like you didn't eat one.
Donuts too?
Whatever. Whatever, you're so full of it. Anyway, so sometimes what I need is the reminder to get angry, right? Sometimes what I need is the disappointment the disappointment in myself for disappointing someone else. So I talk about this girl, Erin Booker, a lot. She is hugely inspiring to me and she hangs in my kitchen, right? She would never be disappointed in me because that's not the kind of person that she is. But in my head, it's one of those like, oh, I can't let this go too far because then I'd have to tell Erin and I don't want to disappoint her, right? You know, like this team, she's part of the bigger like Team Courage and she's incredible, by the way. And such a fighter. And it's the same way with you guys. She kind of represents team for me and that concept. I'd love to be in your kitchen, girl. She represents this concept of community. These people that I respect and admire and care so much about, who I want to be proud of me, right? Totally good anger. That I want to be proud of me. I want those people to be proud of me. And I want to live in a way that they are proud of me, okay? And so, like, there was one time when I was I had a realization that I was kind of just living my life at 75%, 60 to 80%, right? And I was telling my coach about it, and I was saying, I'm struggling with this here, and I don't know what to do. And she's like, well, what would it take to start living at 100%? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what it would take. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how to do that. And she looked at me and she said, just say yes. Just say yes. Just do it. And I was like, oh, I don't have a plan. I can't do that. But it's those reminders, okay? And then another one, I don't even remember this. I think this came in a call I listened to. It's really hard to read. And it says, fear and faith can exist in the same heart. I think somebody who wrote a good book about fear maybe said it, Michelle. But it's fear and faith can exist in the same heart. So it's kind of the same concept as that masterpiece and work in progress. Like, I can be both. So all of those things are things that I have put in place. Some of them are Post-it notes. Some of them are my necklace that my success partner sent me, or my bracelet that my coach sent me, or my other bracelet that I'm wearing to remind myself to pray for a friend who is going to have a baby. Those kinds of things that I have put in my life to reset me and to remind me of my path, to bring me back and remind me of what I'm doing. Some of them are inspiring. Some of them remind me of my commitment and fire up that emerald in me who needs to do the checklist. But sometimes my checklists aren't enough, and I have to have other things that bring me back, whatever it is. So we talk all the time about this concept of failing forward, right? And Alyssa has this brilliant way of describing it where she talks about a pause button, right? Because you're not starting over. You're not going back to where you were because you're not the same person, right? I'm moving forward. I stumble and fall forward, right? And so all of these things remind me of that. They remind me of my progress and where I'm going so that I can come back to my path and then move forward and keep going. It might take a little while to get up. I might be pretty bruised and bloody in my fall, but I'm still moving back on that path with that purpose that I had identified. Because frankly, when I start to spiral, this is the other emerald melancholic thing. When I start to spiral, it happens fast. And so another thing that, and I try to do, you don't laugh at me.
I saw Kelly nodding. She's like, yeah, it does.
It happens
I've seen
fast.
it happen.
Yep. It does happen fast. But the other thing that, and this piece is a little bit harder to do, but it is, Michelle just dived. Yeah. The other thing, and this is a little bit harder, and it's really powerful when I can talk to my coaches about this and my challengers, and I've had my coach say it to me. And some of it's that vulnerability and letting people know you. When someone says to me, like, what are the behaviors that belie you when you are spiraling? What do you do and say when you're starting to get off your path? Do you say, well, I couldn't get up because my kids had a rough night? And those are the things that suddenly your kids have all these rough nights and you can't get to your morning power hour. Gosh, I can't even remember what it's called. That's how off my game I am. You can't get to your morning power hour because suddenly you've had sick kids or they've been up late or somebody woke up in the middle of the night. Guys, I got 5 kids. Somebody always is awake at some point. Something is always outside of what I expect it to be. There's always an excuse, right? But because I've told Angie Bradley what my goals are, you better believe she lives 8 hours away and she's pounding on my front door going, Sarah Kroger, what the heck are you doing? Right? Because I told her the things that get in my way. I told Kelly what gets me off my game. Like I've told people what I sound like when I'm starting to spiral. And so then they call me on it. And that was what was the good dovetail with Kelly's introduction. That's that permission to push a little bit. And so these people, this team, hopefully what we're creating in our challenge groups is enough knowledge of each other and enough checking in with each other that we can say those things that really like push somebody's buttons in a good way, even if it hurts when it happens. You know, like I was spiraling last weekend when we were at Kelly's house, and she looked at me and she's like, why don't you just go downstairs for a minute? And I was like, right. And it burned, man. Let me tell you, it burned because she put me in timeout. She put her thumb right on it and went, boom, why don't you go downstairs for a minute? Because I was losing it, right? But that's the power of letting people know you. And the things that you can't do that, you can't tell people what those things are when you're off your path. You can't tell people, yeah. And then we took, 10 kids on a walk. And Kelly cleaned the kitchen, and that made her feel better. She needs to come feel better at my house. But anyway, you have to tell people what those things are when you're in a good spot. So when you first sign up as a coach, or you first start as a challenger, or you first have some of those wins and you get some of those successes, that's when you tell people. And that's when you start hanging things up in your kitchen, or coining a phrase and having it put on a water bottle, or thinking about, I don't care if you are the only person on your team, if you have something that inspires you, put it on a water bottle. You know what I mean? Whatever it is that's a reminder for you. Think of somebody that you don't want to disappoint. Even if in a million years that person would never actually be disappointed in you, in your mind, that's somebody that you want to be proud of you. That's the person that you need to have in your head. But you have to do it when you're in a good place, so that when you're in a bad place, those things are set in place. No one knows you're in a bad place when you're in a bad place unless you've told them what that looks like. You know, and I will tell you, there are some times that it hits you out of left field and you have no idea, and it looks different and you are struggling in a new way. But for most of us, we struggle in the same way over and over again. We have one struggle of choice and we keep circling back to it. And you know what it is. If you don't know what it is, I guarantee you someone near you does. But you know what it is. You know what you do when you're stressed. You know what you do when you feel out of control. You know, right? Angie knows what it is. And she will tell you, man, if you want somebody to, I made the mistake of asking her for some tough love once. Made the mistake. No, it wasn't. It actually got me back on my path. You know why? Because I said, I need this, and I need somebody who's going to hold me to it and who isn't afraid to be a little bit mean to me. And she's like, I'll do it. I was like, excellent. And she did, and it got me back on my path, and I could keep moving. And now she can be nice to me again. Anyway, where am I? I'm off in the weeds. All right, talked about that. Okay, sorry. What have I not talked about?
Everything that I had filed, you've kind of covered. And one of the things you really talked a lot about earlier that I really was hoping you'd emphasize that you really did was the importance of being known, and letting yourself be known, and letting your struggles be known, letting the patterns that you fall into be known. And the reality is that this looks different. This looks different on everyone. And what it takes to bring you back looks different on everyone. And there are some characteristic there. I mean, we're joking at the beginning about sapphires and emeralds and all, and pearls and the differences, but it looks different. And what you need to come back is impacted by your temperament, and it is impacted by your wiring, and the things that it takes. You named it. You definitely identified it. You have to have shared those tendencies with someone in order for them to help you come back. The things that help you come back don't help me come back.
Because we were talking about this earlier. He's like, ooh, and then we could talk about this. And I'm like, why would we talk about that? Like that, what are you doing? I said, that's not what the talk about is at all. He's like, well, that's exactly what the talk is about. And I'm like, what? You know, and thankfully, I mean, we've been married for 11 years, so I had at least enough wherewithal to hold my tongue a little bit and say, could you explain to me how that's relevant? Because when you say it, it doesn't sound like what I want to talk about tonight. And so, and it came out that it's like, well, no, that's how my sapphire would come back, not how the emerald would come back.
Well, and knowing some of it too is you talking about the script and sharing your script with someone else, because your internal script becomes external. You will give people signs that you are spiraling a little bit. You will give people signs. And so for you, it's, what are the comments? Well, it's, the kids are having a tough night. Well, guess what? The kids seem to be having a tough night a lot.
Every night, all of a sudden.
You know what? The kids slept through and they slept till 9, but man, they had a tough night, you know, which has not happened in the 10 years we've had kids. But for me, it's totally different. It's when I start talking, Michelle, when I start talking about fear, I've had a lot of physical problems. I've had a lot of back problems, and it's derailed me. When I started talking about worrying, about being afraid of hurting myself again, that anyone who knows me well enough knows that if I start talking about being afraid of hurting myself, I'm making excuses. I'm derailing myself. And if I haven't shared that with people, they're like, oh, he has had some back problems. Just right. Modify, you'll be all right. And I modify by not doing it. And it's funny because Sarah was pointing out to me earlier, this time last year was when I was killing it. And I was like, I forget never miss a Monday. I was never missing a day. I wouldn't miss a day. He was
working at it like 4 a.m. because he had to go to work early, and then working at it midnight. There was one time you worked out at midnight and then at 4 a.m. because that was what your schedule did.
And I was killing it, and then I hurt myself. And so I hurt myself, and then I was like down on myself. And then I was down. I was like, oh, well, I screwed it up, and oh, well, I'm busted up now, and I'm broke. And so you do have a tendency to go, oh man, where I was a year ago, I'm right back where I was, except you're not. You're not. When I jumped in, I'm doing the same program now that I was a year ago. And when I did it, it was awesome because I wasn't where I started. When I did the first workout, I wasn't where I started. I was so much further along than where I was when I started this program last year. And so sometimes it's really easy to get down on yourself, and it's really easy to look in the mirror and go, gosh, Michelle, you had a great post about this earlier about feeling like a mess and feeling like, where's my go-to? Who am I going to? Where am I going to? Digging in. Well, the reality is, and Michelle, if you missed it, Michelle was talking about wanting your person, and Jesus wants to be your person. But you're looking for someone else to show and give you Jesus with skin, essentially, Jesus with a face on. And the reality is that's how he comes to you, is through each other. He comes to us through each other. He is your person through someone else that he has put into your life. And so that's the means by, yes, and face. We are the face. We are, all right. I don't want to get into a Dr. Petrie moment, but we are the lechem hapanim.
You know, Kelly, like,
the bread
really
of the face.
Him. Kelly actually really knows him.
Yeah, Brant. All right, you. So, but it is we are the means by which we come into each other's life, by which he comes into our lives, and he is our person through one another, and it is through those moments when we feel unworthy, when we feel unworkable, and gosh, this week it is the epitome of that feeling. This week is that moment for us, as we celebrate what looks like a big mess, what looks like a miserable mess, and it turns out to be the greatest victory ever won. So it takes putting those pieces into place and laying the groundwork and inviting people into that space in your lives. And you spoke to that very well.
Well, and I think that that concept of how it looks differently, because there were a couple of private messages that came through the chat while we were talking, and so I don't want to give anybody away, but one of the questions was like, how do you handle the tough love in the moment? And I think that's a really valid question, and I have two answers for that. I have two answers to that. One is you've given someone permission to be tough on you, right? The reason Kelly put me in timeout is because I allowed her to know me, right? As a pearly. But you've given somebody permission. Somebody from outside of your circle of influence can't do it. Now, the pearl vomits, the emerald gets pissed, right? Pissed, like really, okay? And I have to have given that person permission to do it, because then I'm getting what I asked for. The other thing is, you might not need tough love. That might not be your thing, right? You have to know what your thing is. I need some tough love because I am the queen of excuses. I'm the queen of rationalizing, right? Not just making excuses, but saying, well, I was good all day, so it's not a big deal if I had this. Or I worked out 5 days last week, so it's not really a big, like I can rationalize anything. And I had to really train myself to stop doing that. So you have to decide what you need. It could be enough to have inspirational quotes all over your house. It could be enough for you to see who am I kidding? My clothes aren't in my drawer, but like a basket full of clean workout tanks to show me that I didn't work out enough this week, right? Because I don't have a ton. And so if they're not mostly dirty, then I didn't work out enough this week. Okay? So you have to know what it is. If you have to tell people, look, when you see me not showing up, I need you to come and tell me that you miss me. You know what I mean? You have to decide what it is that speaks to you and brings you back. Okay? And it's not the same for me. If you write Aaron Booker's name and put it on your refrigerator and you have no idea who that is, it means nothing. Except maybe you think, gosh, that's the person that Sarah doesn't want to disappoint. That's not going to bring you back. Do you know what I mean? So you have to figure out what it is that hits you. So like Ben was talking earlier about the scripture hitting him where, God uses all things, like even our big heap of trash that we have to offer, he uses for good, right? And he was going on and on and on about this. And that's when I was like, that's nice and all, but I don't see the relevance to what I'm talking about tonight. It's a good story, but maybe for another talk. But for him, it was that realization. It was being reminded of that. It was thinking about this week, this Holy Week that we're entering into, and that was what was bringing him back. Do you know what I mean? It meant not that it didn't mean anything to me, but it wasn't the thing that brought me back. It was what I thought would make a nice other talk. It was good information. It was inspiring, and it would make a great call. It just wasn't this call, except it was for him. So the thing that brings you back, the thing that you're giving someone permission to do it. And so if tough love will crush you, then don't give someone permission to be tough on you, right? Because you're pushing them in a different way. It also comes to, like Michelle was talking earlier about being vulnerable and taking it slow, and like you don't have to rip your heart open and show it to the world right off the bat. But that's the beauty of our team, right? It's this small microcosm of the bigger world where this is a safe place, so you can start to show your heart some, and you can start to let people get to know you, and you can. For me, it was not letting people know I wasn't perfect, even though FYI, the whole world could see I wasn't perfect. But for me, it was like, well, I had to keep my cards close to my chest because I couldn't let other people know that I was struggling. I couldn't let people see my vulnerabilities. You know what I mean? So maybe that's not your case. Maybe your case is oversharing and you need to learn to dial it back a little bit. Who knows? Everybody's different. And that's a little bit of the self-discovery that you have to go through. That's the piece that your coach can help you with. That's the piece that's a benefit of a success partner. Because that's the other thing, like, because I have set in place that I meet with Rebecca and Angie on Fridays at 1:30, if I don't show up, they come looking for me, right? My phone starts ringing, and I beep, 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 and they're looking for me because I have said I would be there, because I've said it was important to me, you know? So that's the kind of stuff, like, when I'm checking in with people regularly and then suddenly I'm not, guess what? If I don't have any appointments to check in with anybody, then nobody misses me when I miss them. Okay, so if you have somebody that you want to get on a call with at 6 o'clock in the morning and just say nothing, because that's when you're going to get your work done. If you can say nothing, that's the part where I struggle. But like, if that's what you need, then you set that up. If your goal is to do 5 power hours a week, have somebody that you're checking in with on that. Have somebody that you're either meeting at the same time as them. If you want to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, text someone at 6 o'clock in the morning and tell them, I'm getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning 5 times this week, and text them. If they don't want to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, they can turn their ringer off. You know what I mean? But then you have set that up, that accountability up, and you're giving that person permission to come and find you. And how mean you want them to be to you changes. You know, if you want them to be nice to you, you ask this person. If you want them to be mean to you, you ask someone else. You know, like that's your temperament and what really speaks to you. And it's not the same as mine. You know, and we give a lot of credit to the temperaments. And I want to say, because I got a little sore about this last week, that like, I am more than my temperament. You hush. I am more than my temperament. I can tell you I am as emerald as they come. I test like melancholic with a little bit of choleric, you know? So that would be like the emerald ruby. But really what primarily drives my life are those emerald qualities. Like, for example, Ben was making a planning thing, and he made a PowerPoint. It had slides, and they were like 30, 60, and 90-day plans, and then like overarching general goals. Oh my gosh. It was like Christmas, right? And so, but I am more than my temperaments, you know, like I am a person who feels things differently than maybe the next melancholic. So when we talk about those things, just because you're a melancholic doesn't mean that you want the same checks and balances that I have, or that you're the same sapphire. So Ben and Michelle temperamentally are very similar, but what speaks to them in a moment of crisis might be very different. Does that make sense? So then another question that I got, quit talking about ice cream. Man, Hartzler's closed at 9, so we're safe until tomorrow.
Ice cream speaks to me too.
Okay, so another private message that I got while I was talking was that the idea was that failing forward takes longer because we focus on the mistakes. We spend so much time focusing on the mistakes. And frankly, will you talk about the target?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so one of the things, and real quick, this popped into my head here just a minute ago, is that one of the things that I want to emphasize real quick is that it's really useful when you're in a good moment to take note and to put those reminders in. But if you're sitting in the valley right now, that doesn't mean that you have to just wait around until you're in a good moment to put those things into place. One of my favorite writers of all time is G.K. Chesterton, and he said, one sees great things from the valley, only small things from the peak. So if you're in the valley, you can look up and around you and see just these awesome things around you. And it's an opportunity to see some really awesome things. And if you're in the valley, please, I mean, Sarah's talked about it all tonight. And the reality is, like, she and I have been kind of walking through a valley together here for a couple of weeks. And please know you're not alone. And like, you can still reach out and find a reconnect to jumpstart you a little bit. But the thing that Sarah's talking about is that, okay, so part of my job is that I have to go to the firing range. I have to shoot guns. Oh, it's just so hard. I have to shoot guns once a year. And so one of the way that it works is we get 40 rounds and we shoot those 40 rounds from 3 different positions, and these targets pop up anywhere from 50 to 300 meters. And so you got to see the target, and then you got to shoot it, and then it falls down if you hit it, and then you got to look for the next target. And the reality is it's really easy to get hung up on misses. It's really easy to see a target pop up and then shoot at it and notice that it doesn't go down, and then overanalyze and be like, oh man, I missed that target. What did I do? Was it my breathing? Was it my sight picture? Did I squeeze the trigger wrong? What am I doing? You know, you get hung up on it, and you're overanalyzing and thinking so much about the miss that you don't even notice the next target pop up. And so it's really easy in our path, in this path as well, to have targets come your way, to have targets pop up on your path, to have lunch pop up, and you just make a choice that doesn't so much work for you. And like, as you're finishing lunch, you go, oh man, that was the wrong call. I walked down, there's a great ice cream parlor at Bethany Beach. Like it's awesome. So you walk down to the beach, you're here at this cool little, and there's shops, there's this little bookstore, and you just got to get ice cream. But you don't have to get ice cream, but you got to get the ice cream. And then you're finishing the ice cream, and you're like, oh man, what did oh man. And you get hung up on it, and then you're thinking about it, and then you're dwelling on it, and then you're sucked down into the ice cream spiral. And then when the next opportunity comes to win, you miss it because you're dwelling on the failure instead of looking to the next target to pop up. Mm-hmm. So exactly, it's you throw it suddenly, boom, and you miss the next. In fact, the chips are the next target, but you're still dwelling on the ice cream and thinking, I just have to have the chips too. But the chips are the next target. That's the next opportunity, but you're so stuck in the miss that you miss the opportunity. So in that way, misses multiply. Your first miss turns into your second miss, turns into your third miss because you're preoccupied. Eyes front, eyes up, look for the next target. Don't worry about the miss. Knock the next one down when it comes to you.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and that was absolutely my answer to that question about failing forward. Honestly, I don't care if all you've taken is one step in your journey. You are forward from where you were, right? No matter where you are in that journey, even if it's only one day, even if you had one good food day. I had a good food day today, right? That's it. This one. I had a crappy food weekend. In fact, the kids walked, I kid you not, my son walked in yesterday afternoon. He goes, Mom, is there any more of that junk food you got us? And I'm like, oh. Even my 5-year-old knows. And he's like, is there any more of that junk food? And I'm like, well, considering it made you feel like crap, like, no, it's gone. Cause, but you know, like I had a good food day today, right? I reminded my body of what it feels like when I fuel it well. You know, like I made good choices, and I am counting those wins and enjoying how I feel, particularly compared to how I felt over the weekend. So no matter how short your win list is, there's the fact that you have a win list is further forward than you were, right? The fact that you're even thinking about those things as failures now is a win. The fact that you might, Angie, the fact that you're even thinking that those behaviors are not what you want is a win. That's different than the way you were before. Because before, that was just life. That was just a Tuesday. Now you view those things as bad food choices. That's a win, right? Well, that's another step. That is a forward from where you were.
Well, and it's also, that's retraining your scripts. That's retraining your internal monologue. And that very much is seeing, and the verse that Sarah was talking about, right, rewrite the tape. It's rewriting the internal soundtrack. And as she was talking about that verse, it's Romans 8:28, and it's one of the hardest verses in the whole Bible to actually believe. And we know that God works in all things for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. He works in all things, really? He works all things he can use. Doesn't mean he willed all things. Doesn't mean that's what he wanted to happen, but he will use it. Mm-hmm. And so we can do no less. You look at that and you say, oh man, I screwed that up. How can I use it? How can I use it? In what way can it propel me? And that's at the heart of this masterpiece and work in progress message that Sarah's got going on right now, is that look at this. Look at this. Is awesome. This is awesome right here. But it's still happening. Like this is beautiful. This is incredible. This woman next to me is incredible. She's an inspiration. She is a shining beacon, and she's still working. So when those things pop up, when your 5-year-old asks you where the junk food is, how can I use that? That's ouch. That hurt. How can I use it?
Well, and the last thing I wanted to say is we talk a lot about inspiration. And we talk a lot about being the positive thing that is in someone's day, because there's so much negativity floating out there. And I just wanted to remind you that you don't have to be an inspiration, because you are an inspiration. Just by the nature of your being, there is someone who is 1, 2, 3 steps behind you, who sees you as the person to model their journey after, right? You're the person who hasn't had Coke all year. You're the person who started counting their vegetables. You're the person who picked a program to do, who bought the shoes, who stopped having a cocktail at night, who started drinking this crazy shake. There is Kelly, exactly. There is someone who wants to be where you are right now. So for the purposes of people watching this who don't see the chat, yes, there's somebody who fit into the shirt that they had hanging up in their closet that didn't fit until it did. There's someone who sees that, who wants that. Okay, so you are the person who brings somebody else back. You living and walking your path and sharing your journey. Nobody some of us do now because we've become addicted to it, but nobody likes to be vulnerable in public, right? Except for those of us who now do, because we've been doing it long enough. But when you start having people who message you, when I have people like Alyssa who message me and tell me that they're wearing their shirt, when I have people who tell me how many days it's been since they've had any Coke, when I have people who send me pictures of their shoes, Coca-Cola. When I have people who send me pictures of their shoes, that affirms me for the vulnerability that I've shared in the past. You owe it to the person who's watching you to leave that breadcrumb that brings them back, to be the person they don't want to disappoint, to say the thing, to be the name hanging in someone else's kitchen because they see what you're doing and they think, gosh, she had a really hard time getting started, but look at her. She started. She took that first step. She encouraged the person to follow in that footstep. You just have to know, you have to believe, you have to just take my word for it, that there absolutely is somebody who wants to be where you are. 4 months and counting, Ashley, that's right. 4 months and counting. So those are the kinds of things that when you start sharing, now you are the person that someone else says, I drink a lot of Coca-Cola. I could never give it up. I couldn't make it a day without having a soda. But holy crap, she's gone 4 months. She's gone 4 months without having one, because I saw how much soda she drank before, and that's incredible, right? So now you're that person for somebody else. So I think that's all I got.
That was awesome. Thank you. I wrote down so many little punch we need to have a series of tanks, Michelle.
Right, masterpiece and work in progress. Buy the shoes, wear the shirt.
I love how you said the two, you don't have to be an inspiration because you are. Like, y'all, your name is already hanging in someone's kitchen. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know it. And it's almost beautiful we don't know it. Listen to the redhead. Yeah. I just think that it's amazing. And I'm just thankful that you guys took the time to share. And, you know, I think there's a lot of value, obviously, in this call. I want to re-listen to it. I think it's something that helps you grow as a leader and as a coach and as a parent or as a friend. Like, you can apply this across the board, but being someone's safe person, or if you're not, like, I'm trying to explain, like, you know, like Sarah said, like, you know, she's a melancholic or an emerald and I'm a pearl emerald, but I could tell sometimes when our emeralds unite, and then there's times that our emeralds collide, you know? So, and I had to learn as a pearl, that was okay. You know what I mean? Like, and it was really cool. And that's where, like, the vulnerability in our team, where, like, Michelle's a sapphire ruby and I'm a pearl emerald. We're like opposites. But when we've learned to share those things, and then just knowing that you have, the thing I think the best though, Sarah, the two things, and I'll let Michelle share stuff too. The two things that I loved is the first one where you talked about, like, sometimes you just got to have those breadcrumbs to get you back to where you started. Because it's, you're just pausing, like Alyssa said, you're just pausing. Like, even if I ate a whole pan of brownies, which I didn't, but I did eat like 3 buckets of tortilla chips yesterday at a Mexican restaurant, and I came home and I was so sick last night, like so sick. I just this morning thought, I just can't do that again. Like, I just can't do that again. Like, whereas 3 years ago, I would have started the day off and continued it for like weeks and just continued hating myself because that's what I did. And so even though I fell, like, I love how you said that, like, I pressed pause and I kind of fell into a taco coma because nachos are my weakness. And then they were not moderate, you know what I'm saying? But then, like, but I got out of it. I love how you shared that. And then I did like how you talked about, you know, it's okay to get angry, like, not angry at yourself, not like, you're not saying to yourself, like, you worthless piece of, you know what? It's more like, I know I'm worth more than this, and I made the decision not to do this anymore. Right. So even though I did this, like, I know even though I don't feel better than this, and having those people that remind you that, like, having those quotes, like, I love that, because that's why personal development and community, like, having books you read to fill it in and people who live it. And so those were just two things that really struck me, because going through pregnancy right now, a lot of those old tapes come back up when I have cravings, or when I have days that I'm swollen, or when I have days and I'm whatever. And it helps to hear, like, I'm not there anymore. I'm in a different place. Like, you know, and that really was a good reminder for me to hear it tonight. Like, and so thank you.
I really liked your breadcrumb thing too, because I was thinking, when you said it, I think breadcrumbing, I always think social media, but I really like the way you said that. You said finding your way back, because I think one of the things that, especially for our newer coaches, that you'll notice is you'll see veteran Beachbody coaches showing new transformations all the time. And I remember there was a point where I was like, how can people always have new transformations? I mean, they already had a transformation, you know, how do they have another transformation? And over the last 4 years, you know, we've come to realize this is, when we say it's a journey, it is, you know, eating right, trying to change our lives. It's not easy, and we're going to go through rough times. I mean, it's no secret. I have shared over and over again on our team page, PPD has taken me for the biggest loop of my life. And one of the hardest ones is eating. I had an eating disorder before I started with my Beachbody journey. And so now when I get stressed and anxious, all I want to do is eat. And even though I no longer go binge and go throw it up like I used to, I am on vacation, I find myself eating ice cream. And then what do? I walk to the beach and all those voices come back. You're fat. You're old. Look at your picture in that. You're supposed to be nice. You're supposed to be thinner than that. Look at that pretty woman over there. She's all fit, mom. And you're just, you know, the devil's going to attack us like that. We're going to get it. We're going to go through these times. And the thing about the breadcrumbs is what we have on this team, you know, and this is like, now it's one of my biggest selling points for new coaches. What we have on this team with the support, if I didn't have the support, of Angie and Kelly and different coaches checking in on me and saying, Michelle, are you okay? I don't know where I would be right now because it has been hell. It has been really hard for me the past year. And the breadcrumbs of knowing, get back on the wagon and exercise, get back on the wagon and eat right, because we're going to have times in our lives where we're just constantly falling off, where we feel like we can't get a win. But like you're saying earlier, I love what you were saying, it is. It's like when you go up and you shoot at that target, you can't focus on what you missed. I can't focus on the fact that I ate ice cream. I was planning on getting off this call, making another bowl of ice cream and throwing some Life cereal in it and sitting down and watching a movie because I was feeling defeated. I don't think I'm going to do that now, but it's that I don't want to sit and talk much longer, but those two things really struck. And Sarah, you're an inspiration in that you show people, again, the whole idea of masterpiece and work in progress, that we're going to fall. And as long as we keep getting back up and we keep tapping back in and we keep using our story to share, not only are we an inspiration, but we continue on our own journey as well. So thank you.
That was awesome. I agree. Thank you so much. Something that just popped in mind, because this is the emerald in me, is she talked about success partners or push partners or reaching out. I would love everybody to think about that. Even if you're not in the business, like having somebody in your challenge group that can be your accountability buddy, just because it'll connect you with one person on the team, you know what I mean? Or if you have business goals or whatever. But I think if you don't have a person, look in the challenge group, somebody that inspires you, reach out to them and say, like, can you be my like accountability person? Like, that's kind of, we've all been on the team longer and have like different people like I've reached out to on the team, but I would like to encourage you so you don't ever feel isolated. So you're not on a team call thinking, well, no one will do that for me. Because if that's run through anyone's head tonight, I just want to blow that lie out of the water. Like, everyone here cares about you and wants to know you. And we have a lot of new coaches coming in. So
it was easy when I was at the beginning of things and I would see somebody shout out on Facebook, like, well, look at this book that somebody sent me, or look at this, shout out that I got, or whatever, like, get a little jealous about that, where, I was like, well, I don't have that person. Well, sometimes you have to ask for that person, and that's, we all want people to come out and, I don't know, tap us, but sometimes you have to reach out. You have to ask, like, and I know I give Angie a hard time, but like, she's an amazing accountability partner, and she speaks to me in the language that I need. You know what I mean? Like, she's the mom of 9. She's not going to mistreat you unless it helps you. Like, her being to me helps me. If that wasn't what helps me, she doesn't call Kelly and yell at Kelly. Well, maybe she does a little bit, but like,
a little bit.
But like, she's probably nicer to Kelly than she is to me, right? Because that's what I needed. And like, that accountability piece, you have to ask for it. Like, April reached out and looked for somebody because she wanted to start that. And frankly, like, I agree with Kelly about whether it's business or personal, because my business journey mirrors my personal journey. Like, the things that I need to do every day for my personal health and fitness journey are almost exactly the things that I need to do every day for my business journey. There's a couple of things that are different if you're not working the business, but the steps are kind of the same. And when I'm struggling in one, I'm struggling in the other.
Yeah, I agree. All right, guys, this was awesome. 10:03. I feel like we could stay on another hour, but Michelle has to go sneak ice cream. Just kidding. What is that? Seltzer water. Way to go. Thank you guys so much. Go work out. Alyssa, you rock, girl. Team Kroger, you guys are amazing. I'm going to get the recording up. Hopefully by the morning, my computer can be a little slow. But thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing the connections that are going to flow from this and the fruit. Y'all have a good Holy Week.
Bye, guys.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.